Welcome back to Comic Krackle. I'm your host Kirby, and you're watching Motherbox News, your trusted source from the source. Today we're going to be talking about The New Gods issue number 4 by Ram V Evan Cagle and guest artist Bernard Chang. This issue starts off with a 3-page sequence that serves as an origin for New Genesis. This shows Highfather and Himon having a discussion regarding the formation of New Genesis, with Highfather asking Himon to utilize the Motherbox technology within the heart of New Genesis. Although Himon does applaud Highfather for the formation of New Genesis, he's still relatively cautious about utilizing Motherbox technology. Keep in mind, Himon had just discovered the technology from Element X to be able to utilize the Motherbox and tap into the source. Himon believes that Highfather is too impatient to wait and see what the Motherbox utilizations could be used for, and Highfather says that Himon is too cautious. Himon describes the Motherbox as being able to discover the true potential of not only mechanisms, but possibly even organic beings. It also needs to be noted that Highfather calls Motherbox an it, and Himon actually corrects him and says that the Motherbox is a she, and only one side of an argument. So that does leave the possibility that the other side of the argument is a father box. Potentially this could tap into the anti-life equation or outside of the source, like where Karok Ator comes from. It's then shown that the Motherbox is at the heart of modern New Genesis, so Highfather got his way. We then cut over to present day New Genesis, with Highfather seeing the onslaught brought on by Karok Ator's invasion of New Genesis. While Highfather gives orders regarding these measures, he then talks about Shadowfall. And here to talk about Shadowfall's creation, here's your core correspondent, Kirby. Thanks, Kirby. Hi, I'm Kirby, lore correspondent. Okay, so Kirby asked me to talk about Shadowfall today, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't familiar with her before, and most of you won't be either unless you read the New 52 Green Lantern New Gods crossover. Oh, you didn't know that was a thing? Me neither. So Shadowfall had her first appearance in Green Lantern / New Gods God's Head number 1. This was an event comic that came out in 2014 and had 20 issues tying into the series. To summarize this whole event, it's that the New Gods believed that one human had the life equation within them, and they were going to take out any of the Green Lanterns that stood in their way. Shadowfall kind of plays a supporting role throughout this event and doesn't have a lot of characterization, as she was passed around from multiple writers and artists, but suffice it to say that she was the archer for New Genesis. And like all of these new characters that Ram V and Evan Cagle are bringing into the story, you don't need to have a lot of background. You just have to accept that they are also New Gods. And I absolutely love the scene where it's showing the introduction of Shadowfall taking on these nameless and faceless villains, because she just shoots these light arrows into the sky, and once they come down, they take out so many of these hordes. And yeah, she's pretty cool. And also, it's good to see more women that are represented in the New Gods pantheon. Anyways, that's enough for me. Back to you, Kirby. Well, because we're already talking about Shadowfall, let's go ahead and address the community asked question from Connor, which says, what was the design philosophy and inspiration behind the redesigned New Gods that appear, Himon and Shadowfall, and also the new characters such as Ra and Akala from previous issues? Also, will the gods use the God Surge like a Bankai? Well, because this question wasn't asked for me, let's go ahead and cut over to Ram V to answer this question. Ram?
I wouldn't say there's any one all-encompassing design philosophy to how these new gods have been redesigned. Largely, my view is to give them design elements that, at least in my mind, lend them a sort of history. A background that is not necessarily known to the reader, but one that is at least known to me. Himon's redesign came from that. In other cases, Shadowfall, for instance, we just went with a redesign that felt true to the essence of the character. These are gods, after all. On some level, they represent the quintessence of whatever idea that formed them. So we wanted that to come through in the designs as well. You'll see this with the Black Racer as well. On occasion, the designs are reflected in their cultural origins. In other cases, we design them just to look cool. The God Surge, you'll have to read to find out. Let's just say there are a few new powers showing up soon.
Moving forward in the story, we pick back up with Scott Free and Big Barda as they attempt to save the new god, Kamal. While Big Barda is taking out all of the soldiers that were pursuing Kamal and his family, Scott goes over to them to make sure that they're safe, as well as knowing that they come in peace. As soon as Barda gets done with the last soldier, she talks to Oberon and says that her mother box has been pinging since they arrived to this area. It's shown that the message that was coming through from the mother box was letting them know that New Genesis was now being invaded. And just as they come to this realization, they look over and Orion appears. Orion is fuming, and justifiably so. He tasks Scott for saving this child before anything happened to New Genesis. And now, at the end of this time, New Genesis is being invaded, and the only thing that Scott has been able to do is find the child, not get him out of Orion's warpath. Orion believes that because neither of them got to the child before the 7 days were up, that they're at fault for New Genesis invasion. I believe that the next scene is not only the most important in this issue, but as well as the series coming up to this point. While Highfather is being briefed on the invasion, he begins to realize that maybe his dream was foolish. The dream being that the formation of New Genesis would not require protection, as well as the idea that he could be a peaceful god. If you go back to Jack Kirby's New Gods, in the issue The Pact, it talks about Isaac being an equal and oppositional force to Darkseid. Once he denounced violence, he discovered the source and swore that he would be a peaceful god. In a way, I felt like this moment was a means to say that you need to stand up for what is right and you cannot just be passive. This moment is given even more weight when Highfather reveals that he's been limiting the New Gods' ability to tap into the source, and now he's releasing the God Surge. So up to this point, all of the New Gods have been operating at a disadvantage, not being able to tap into the source like they were destined to. So at this point, Highfather has taken off the training wheels, and as he does this, he departs his safe haven and goes into the battlefield. I feel like this scene is Highfather realizing that he needs to make a stand for what is right. And when I spoke to Ram V regarding the realization of having to make concessions for this dream and what the ramifications are for Highfather, he said,
This to me is the fundamental choice to be made between being a god and being a person. Gods have dreams, and often all else is sacrificed in the pursuit of that dream. And they exist as exemplars of faith, the pursuit of some ideal in whose presence all other concerns must fade. But we contrast this now with the choices that regular people have to make. Do I follow my dream or provide for my family? Do I keep my faith, even if all it has brought me is sorrow and despair? Highfather is made to reflect on such circumstances in this issue, and perhaps that is a way of questioning his dream, questioning his faith, and thus also perhaps a way of challenging his position as a god, as any good antagonist invader should do. Personally, I wanted to look beyond the idealism of what these characters stand for and look into who these characters are. After all, that's part of why we write comics. The idealism of the superhero is questioned, and we find reasons to identify with them and follow them and perhaps love them, not for what they stand for, but for who they are.
At the same time, it's when Karok Ator demands that his army plow into New Genesis, not caring of the lives that are lost of his own soldiers, because at the end of the day, he's going to be able to conquer New Genesis. And if Shadowfall was cool before as like this light beam archer, now with the God Surge, her arrows turn into cannons that are able to blow up each and every one of these ships. And it wouldn't be another episode of Motherbox News if I didn't say that Evan Cagle's art is wonderful. The showcase of how Shadowfall's powers have increased from arrows to dismantling ships. Are you kidding me? We then cut back to Earth with the New Gods battling over the fate of Kamal. There's something that I really wanted to note about this specific page, and it's when Orion is going to hit scot-free and Kamal that he just vanishes. And when he reappears, he's a couple of feet away, and there's almost this glitch glitch effect. Now, obviously, this is the mother box being able to take care of both Scott-Free and Kamal, getting them outside of the line of fire of Orion. But the way that it's shown is just absolutely spectacular to show mid-transformation back into tangibility, as Orion shows no signs of stopping and pursuing after both Scott and Kamal. He's quickly punched in the face by Barda and he goes flying back. And at the same moment, Kamal's powers begin to overload. In the last page, we cut back to Highfather as he enters the battlefield with the narration stating, "Sometimes to save a dream, you have to kill another. I once dreamed of peace and joy and wondrous things, and yet here I am, returned, the inheritor of grim wisdoms." And that's going to be it for Mother Box news and this issue of the New Gods. And don't forget to pick up issue number 5, April 15th. And as always, trust in the source.